Welcome to Saints Sodality, a new podcast where we dive deep into the life of saints.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are undertaking quite a deep dive into the life of someone who really embodies contradiction, Padre Pio.
Yeah, his story is just full of these paradoxes, isn't it?
Absolutely, like profound, relentless suffering set against this incredibly robust, almost, earthy sense of humor.
Right, and then there's the fact he was a friar who genuinely sought this hidden, simple monastic life.
But the whole world basically beat a path to his door. He was sought after globally, just bombarded with requests, letters, pilgrims.
It's so easy to get lost in the sort of golden image, the devotional pictures, right? The saintly figure.
Hagiography, yeah.
Exactly. But the sources we're looking at today, they really force us to confront the factual, demanding, three-dimensional reality of his life.
We're talking intimate details here. His daily routine, which was frankly brutal, the physical cost of the stigmata,
And the extreme constraints his own superiors put on him, plus the very specific way his alleged spiritual gifts seemed to function. It wasn't just random miracles.
So our mission today, for you listening, is really to move beyond that legend. We want to understand the human and spiritual furnace that forged this man.
We want to give you a really well-informed view, acknowledging the complexity, how his gifts were tied so tightly to his suffering, his obedience.
It's about understanding what really drove his ministry, the engine behind it all.
Yeah, trying to reconcile the saint on the altar with the, stocky, vigorous Capuchin friar who, despite these just catastrophic physical issues,
Sat on a confessional day after day after day.
attending to the needs of effectively a global parish. So let's start by meeting the man behind the myth.
Okay, let's unpack this first part. If you picture a stigmatic saint, you might think, frail, pale, ethereal.
Yeah.
Someone sort of floating away.
Right, maybe on the verge of collapse.
But the descriptions of Padre Pio, they paint a completely different picture. Very, very grounded. He was fundamentally, it seems, a man of the earth.
Oh, indeed. The sources are clear that he lost that frail look he apparently had in his youth. As he got older, he was described as stocky, vigorous, middle height, physically quite sturdy.
Okay.
His hair and beard went gray, reflecting the age and the immense strain he was under. But what really stood out, apparently, were his eyes.
Ah, the eyes. What do they say?
Described specifically as penetrating and bright with the fire and strength of an apostle. So you get that contrast.
Yeah, the solid, robust exterior.
Yeah.
But then this intense, penetrating spiritual energy within.
And his whole manner matched that grounded physicality. He had a quick wit, what the sources call homely speech.
Homely speech, meaning?
Meaning like the frank, direct way of talking you'd associate with a man of the soil. Very down to earth.
And his humor wasn't exactly gentle then.
Definitely not. Not scholarly or soft. It was vigorous, full of fun, but could also be quite caustic sometimes. He used the homely vernacular, the local dialect and expressions.
So sharp-tongued at times.
He could be. While his intention was always kindness, spiritual correction, he was known to use a quick, sharp quip. To instantly expose someone's foolishness or maybe shallow intentions if they came to him insincerely.
He didn't suffer fools gladly, maybe.
Pretty much. He didn't waste time on fancy rhetoric, just cut straight to the truth with a joke or a really pointed phrase.
So we have this very human, quite robust figure who, at the same time, is enduring this incredible, persistent physical suffering. Mainly the stigmata, right?
Centered on the stigmata, yes. The wounds caused real constant pain. They impeded his movement significantly, especially his hands and feet.
Yet somehow, apart from the direct effects of those wounds, he was generally a healthy man. That seems like another paradox.
It is. That paradox is absolutely key. The pain was real, the blood loss was constant and real, but his underlying constitution was strong.
And there's a specific, verifiable example of this endurance, isn't there? From 1929.
Yes, a really astounding one. It involves an operation.
Okay, this is where it gets really fascinating. In 1929, Padre Pio had surgery for a hernia. And the sources make a critical point about this.
They do. It's quite shocking, really. He refused all anesthetic.
All of it. For a hernia operation, that's major surgery.
It is. And the doctor performing it was Dr. Festa of Rome. This is the same doctor who had previously done one of the original medical examinations of the stigmata wounds, confirming their physical nature.
Wow. Let's just pause on that. Refusing anesthetic for major surgery, while already dealing with open, painful, bleeding wounds daily.
It speaks volumes, doesn't it? About his pain tolerance, obviously, but maybe more about his acceptance of suffering.
Like it was part of his mission, not something to just be medicated away.
Exactly. It underscores that for him, the pain wasn't just a symptom to manage. It was something to be actively endured, offered up, perhaps.
It also forces you to confront the reality of the wounds themselves. It wasn't just psychosomatic if he could handle separate, genuine surgical trauma like that.
Absolutely. It's a profound testament to a kind of physical and spiritual resilience that is, well, frankly, hard for most of us to even comprehend.
And that resilience gets tested even further when we look at the practicalities of his daily life, specifically his diet and sleep.
Ah, yes, the caloric mystery.
This is where, for me, any purely natural explanation just completely breaks down.
You'd think the calories needed for a man of his build, doing what he did, intense ministry, 16, 18 hours a day would be huge.
Astronomical.
Instead, he survived on almost nothing, fantastically minimal diet, just one main meal a day at noon.
And what did he eat then?
He preferred vegetables, fish, cheese, ate meat only sometimes. And the sources also mention he was prone to indigestion.
Which probably restricted things even more.
Likely. And his drinks are noted too. He drank wine, sometimes up to 3 tumblers with his meal, occasionally coffee or anise.
And beer.
Yeah, in the evenings apparently he'd often read or study while sipping a bottle of beer, and he'd often share it with visitors, which again shows that sort of earthy social side.
Interesting detail.
And when those weren't around, simple substitutes like water with sugar and lemon juice.
But the basic math just doesn't work, does it?
Not even close. The sources themselves marvel at it. How did he sustain this incredibly arduous daily task? The confessions, the conversations, the sheer physical cost of saying Mass on only, 300 or 400 calories?
300 or 400 calories.
Yeah.
And barely any sleep.
Typically just 3 or 4 hours a night. It's astonishing.
That deficit is just medically inexplicable under normal conditions.
A man doing that level of cognitive and emotional work with daily blood loss from 5 open wounds, he should have withered away fast.
The calories wouldn't even cover the blood loss, let alone basic metabolism, let alone the actual work he was doing.
It makes no natural sense.
So how did he react to this kind of physiological impossibility?
With that characteristic humor, actually. There's a famous story about a time he fasted.
Oh, the fasting story, yes.
It's great. He got sick with some stomach trouble, took nothing but water for 8 full days. Afterwards, his father guardian, naturally worried, told him to get on the scales.
And the result? After 8 days of only water.
He had gained weight.
Gained weight. Serious.
That's what the source says. And Padre Pio apparently just laughed heartily at this ridiculous outcome and quipped, "I think I'll have to eat more to reduce."
Huh, that's brilliant. It shows he was totally aware that his body wasn't playing by the normal rules.
Completely self-aware, and yet he kept that wonderful wry wit about it.
It really sets the stage, doesn't it? His life seems to have required some kind of supernatural intervention just for basic survival, which frames his ministry.
As a truly divine sacrifice. Yeah. Let's move into that daily work. So, shifting from the physical man to his actual daily ministry, you immediately see how that intense suffering really shaped his entire day. His life was just relentlessly structured around other people's spiritual and emotional needs.
The schedule wasn't just packed, it was brutal. Getting up at 3:30 a.m. every single morning.
Then Mass at 5 a.m. And the sheer force of the crowds dictated so much. In the early days, before things got more organized.
People were waiting outside from 2 a.m.
2 in the morning, sometimes in terrible weather, snow, rain, just to get a spot near the altar for his Mass.
That level of devotion is incredible.
Yeah.
It basically meant his whole life became a public spectacle, didn't it? Even though he wanted that quiet monastic life.
Completely. And his main job, the reason those crowds were there, was the confessional. He'd just sit there for hours and hours every single day.
Hearing women in the morning, men in the afternoon, typically.
That was the usual schedule, yes.
Oh.
And we have to remember how his physical state directly impacted his other duties as a friar.
Ah, right. The stigmata in his feet.
It caused so much pain that he couldn't participate in the divine office, the communal prayers that really define the rhythm of a Capuchin's life with the rest of the community.
Standing for that long was just too difficult.
Apparently so. And that's a really crucial detail for understanding the sacrifice involved.
How so?
Well, for a devoted friar, missing the divine office isn't just skipping a task. It's a kind of spiritual isolation, a deep longing to be part of that communal prayer life, denied by his physical suffering.
So that constraint kind of forced him to pour almost all his remaining energy into the one-on-one ministry.
Exactly. Turning his parish, as the sources say, into basically the entire world.
And what a parish it was. People coming from everywhere, seeking correction, advice, support.
And the sources really emphasize he gave meticulous attention. It wasn't just listening. It was addressing these endless problems of conscience and tales of infidelities.
No conveyor belt confessions then.
Absolutely not. He was known for avoiding any perfunctory or routine handling. He engaged deeply, often, as we'll see, going straight to the heart of things people weren't even mentioning.
But the sheer volume of people wanting this deep personal ministry, it must have become unmanageable.
It did. Eventually, it required a surprising amount of, well, bureaucracy just to keep things orderly.
This is where the spiritual meets the logistical nightmare, right? The registration system in later years. What were the rules?
They were incredibly specific and, frankly, quite exclusionary. First off, you had to speak Latin or Italian.
Okay, that's an immediate barrier for many international pilgrims.
A huge barrier. Second, you had to register your name. And we have this detail that one secretary needed a 10-day advance registration ticket just to get you a spot in the queue.
10 days. Just for the ticket. Imagine traveling halfway across the world, arriving, and then being told you need to wait 10 days just to get registered for an appointment that might be weeks away.
It speaks volumes about the pressure, the demand, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
And there were more rules. Appointments couldn't be made by someone else for you or by telegram.
Why was that?
Probably to stop people trying to reserve spots indefinitely while they weren't there or using connections. It forced people to be physically present and committed.
Okay. And even priests had limits.
Yes, even priests who usually get some precedence. The rule was only one priest could register for every 5 lay people.
Wow. The fact that church authorities had to impose these strict, almost bureaucratic limits, it just shows what a massive, disruptive spiritual phenomenon he was.
His availability literally had to be rationed. Which brings us to the absolute spiritual center of his day, the Mass.
For Pio, and for the crowds, this wasn't just attending a service, was it? It was something much more profound.
The sources describe it as a mystical martyrdom.
There's that description of his transfiguration during the Mass, how he stopped being the simple, smiling priest and became the man of God, chosen to give testimony of his existence, especially at the sign of the cross.
Yes, particularly then. The theological interpretation offered is that he was, in that moment, collaborating with Jesus in the continuing martyrdom of the 5 wounds.
Implying he died mystically in each Mass that he said. That's incredibly intense.
It's the culmination of all that physical suffering we talked about, channeled into this single spiritual act.
And because of this deep engagement, the Mass itself took an unusually long time.
Yes, 1 hour and 10 minutes. Consistently.
1 hour and 10 minutes.
And the crowd, despite the length, despite the intensity, was described as being just deeply affected, completely unaware of the passage of time. And then, after the Mass, he'd have a prolonged private period of thanksgiving.
So, an enormous amount of spiritual focus and physical endurance was required before he even started the main work of the day in the confessional.
Exactly. The sacrifice was immense right from the start of the day. Now, when we look at the alleged supernatural gifts, it's really important to remember they weren't separate from his ministry. They seem to be practical tools given by God, the sources suggest, to help with saving souls, especially in that demanding confessional setting.
And the key gift here was discernment, right?
Yeah.
Knowing things about people.
Yes. God apparently aided him by disclosing the status of the souls of the penitents. This let him reveal, sometimes just part, sometimes all of what he saw, usually as a way to correct or confirm something for them.
And this insight helped him work more efficiently, in a way.
It seems so. It allowed him to solve spiritual issues very quickly and accurately. I mean, how else could he tell someone the exact number of times they'd missed Mass over several years?
Right, or answer questions they hadn't even asked yet.
Exactly, or even know the contents of an unopened letter someone was carrying.
That's incredible. And more fundamentally, he knew if people were sincere.
Apparently, yes. Before they even spoke, he could tell if they were approaching with genuine sincerity, the right disposition for confession, or if it was just pretense or even simple curiosity.
That must have made confession incredibly intense, both faster maybe, but also more exhausting for him.
You'd imagine so. To carry that knowledge, we have some amazing, really detailed anecdotes that illustrate this hidden knowledge. Let's start with the doctor, the one who thought he could just observe.
Oh, right. The doctor who came into the sacristy but then quickly left without speaking to Pio.
That's the one. Pio noticed him leave, asked where he'd gone, and then apparently said quite confidently, "He will soon return."
An idiot.
He did. And when the doctor came back, Pio immediately confronted him. No small talk.
What did he say?
He said to this, presumably stunned doctor, "You carry your own condemnation in your pocket? You are a delinquent. Read the letter in your pocket."
Wow. And the letter?
The doctor was carrying a letter. It was from a friend recommending that Padre Pio try to convert this doctor.
Unbelievable.
The doctor apparently went pale, instantly knelt down, confessed years of sin right there, and received absolution.
So the gift acted like immediate spiritual surgery, bypassing all the denial or resistance.
Exactly. Forcing that immediate confrontation with the truth. That seems to have been its primary function.
There's another story about reading thoughts, isn't there? With the two sisters.
Yes, fascinating. Two sisters came to visit. They'd gotten permission from their father, but only on the promise, that they wouldn't kiss Padre Pio's gloved hand.
Why not?
The father was afraid of infection, apparently.
Okay, so they promised.
They promised. But when they got there and saw everyone else kissing his hand out of devotion, they were tempted. They hesitated, torn between the promise and their desire for that blessing.
Understandable.
So as they approached him, Padre Pio just looked at them, gave a knowing smile, pulled his gloved hand back before they could touch it,
And said,
and asked them directly, "How about the promise?"
oh my goodness, he knew.
He knew not just what they were about to do, but their internal conflict, the specific promise they'd made and were about to break, purely from their intention, it seems.
That level of insight is just hard to grasp. And the third anecdote about the blind husband. That one really highlights the purpose behind these gifts, doesn't it?
It really does. As tools for repentance, maybe even divine justice. A woman came seeking a cure for her husband who is totally blind.
A miracle cure.
Yes. But Pio revealed a secret the husband had kept hidden for decades. He told the wife the blindness was a specific punishment sent by God because the husband, when he was only 16,
Had done what?
had severely beaten his own father with an iron rod.
What? That's horrific.
Pio implied the blindness was a necessary suffering for that man's ultimate salvation, a consequence he had to bear.
And when the wife went home and confronted her husband with this secret from decades ago,
Initially, he denied it furiously, but then apparently overwhelmed that this stranger could know this hidden, brutal truth, he broke down and admitted beating his father.
so again, the discernment cut through years of secrecy to expose the root of the spiritual problem.
Precisely. Now, moving on to prophecy. The sources suggest that if God gave him insight into past and present state of a soul.
Then it follows that God could also grant him insight into the future when needed.
Exactly. And the proofs offered are numerous, often related to war or personal crises.
Like the incident with King George V of England. That one seems very specific and verifiable.
It is. January 1936. Pio suddenly knelt down and asked everyone present to pray for a soul that is soon to appear before the tribunal of God. And he specified it was the King of England.
But the news at the time was just that the king had mild flu, right?
Yes, Dr. Sanguinetti, who was there, apparently pointed this out, referencing a newspaper report about a slight attack of influenza. Pio just insisted, "It is as I say."
And the outcome.
The very next morning, the news arrived. King George V had died precisely at midnight, which coincided exactly with the time Padre Pio had woken up another friar, Pio Aurelio, specifically to pray for the king's soul.
That precise timing, confirmed by witnesses like Pio Aurelio, it makes it very hard to dismiss as just a guess or coincidence.
Very hard. And during World War II, there's the prophecy about Genoa being bombed. Equally striking.
This was in autumn 1940. He told a penitent from Genoa the city would be bombed.
Yes, and apparently he grew visibly pale, even shed tears, describing the destruction that was coming.
But then he offered a specific assurance to that individual person.
He did. He shifted, became calm, and said, "Be calm. Your house will not be touched."
And when Genoa was eventually bombed,
The sources state that amidst the absolute devastation, that specific penitent's house was the only building left standing in the area.
the only one.
Incredible.
He did offer broader, though often sad insights too, like at the start of WWII, predicting Italy would be the first nation to seek an armistice.
But he added something profound after that, didn't he? He did, he said sadly. "It is not the war that frightens me, but the post-war." He saw the long-term societal damage that would follow the physical fighting.
A chilling foresight. But mostly, his prophecy seemed focused on personal guidance or warnings.
Yes, very often. Like the widow who asked about remarrying, Pio warned her directly. Up to the present you have cried with one eye, but if you marry again, you will cry with both eyes.
Did she listen?
No, she ignored him, remarried, and apparently suffered greatly, even ending up imprisoned for a time because of something her new husband did.
A tragic fulfillment of the warning.
Indeed. And finally, we have to touch on perhaps his most singular, most mysterious gift: bilocation and invisibility.
Being seen in places he hadn't physically traveled to.
Exactly. He himself acknowledged it wasn't like taking a trip. He called it something different.
The Loreto incident is the classic example, right? A lay brother asked if he'd ever been to Loreto. Pio said no.
But then, when the brother mentioned people seeing him there, Pio conceded, oh, that is something different. He acknowledged the phenomenon without explaining it naturally.
It confirms the extraordinary nature of it.
But the anecdote that really cemented this gift and showed its potential purpose as, well, divine intervention, involves the American officer during WWII.
Right, the Protestant officer leading a bombing raid.
Yes, stationed in Bari, they were planning to bomb San Giovanni Rotondo, mistakenly believing there was a munitions dump near the monastery.
So, as the planes approached the target,
The officer, leading the formation, high in the sky, suddenly saw a monk floating in the air with outstretched arms, actively warding off the planes.
floating in the air, a monk.
That's the description. The sheer impossibility, the surreal nature of the sight just stopped the officer cold.
I can only imagine.
He was completely stupefied, recognized it as some kind of supernatural warning, ordered the planes to turn back immediately. They dropped their bombs harmlessly in an open field miles away.
And the connection to Pio.
Later, the officer sought out the monastery. When he entered the sacristy, he instantly recognized Padre Pio as the figure he had seen in the sky, the monk who had saved the town.
Wow, that's quite a story. It links the gift directly to protection. Moving on, the sheer scale of his ministry becomes even clearer when you look at the correspondence. The volume of mail he received. It must have been an administrative nightmare.
Oh, an absolute horror show, administratively speaking. The numbers are staggering. In 1963, the sources say he was getting an average of 600 letters a day.
600 a day.
Sometimes it surged to 700 or 800. Plus, on top of that, between 50 and 80 telegrams daily.
Just managing that influx. Who even opened it all?
It required a whole operation, and the letters came from everywhere, all over Europe, obviously, even occasional ones smuggled from behind the Iron Curtain, Poland, Hungary, Czechoslovakia.
Amazing.
But also the Americas, North and South, Africa, Egypt, Nigeria, South Africa are mentioned, and the East India, Australia. Literally the globe. He was like the world's spiritual agony uncle.
A global lifeline. But this highlights a huge paradox, doesn't it? The world is pouring its heart out to him, relying on his personal input.
Yet he was operating under these immense constraints. Constraints from just lack of time, after hours in the confessional, hours in prayer.
And constraints imposed by his own religious superiors. This is crucial.
Absolutely critical. He had been strictly forbidden to write letters since 1923.
Forbidden since 1923. That's decades of this global influx with no ability to personally reply in writing.
Think about what that means. His main tool for offering detailed personal guidance globally, his own written word, was taken away from him by obedience.
And wasn't writing physically painful for him anyway?
Yes, because of the stigmata wound in his hand.
Yeah.
So even if allowed, it would have been difficult. But the prohibition was absolute. His response to the world's written pleas had to be indirect.
So how did they handle the sheer volume of mail? Just ignore it?
No, they set up an administrative solution. Secretaries were appointed. They handled acknowledgments apparently in 8 different languages.
8 languages. Which ones?
Italian, English, French, German, Hungarian, Latin, Spanish, and Portuguese. Quite the operation.
And what did these acknowledgments say? Could they offer any actual advice?
No, typically just a standardized assurance of prayers. No specific guidance or personal response from Pio himself could be included.
So people writing in got a form letter, essentially saying, Padre Pio will pray for you.
Pretty much. Which makes his own prayer life even more mysterious, doesn't it? How did he actually intercede for these thousands upon thousands of petitions that he might only have known about through brief summaries from secretaries, or perhaps only through some kind of divine intuition?
Did he ever explain how he managed that mental load?
He did offer an explanation, a fascinating one. He said basically, the Lord makes me remember only whom and what he wishes me to pray for.
Only what God wanted him to remember.
Yes, that concept of divinely guided memory is really something. It suggests intercessory prayer isn't about human efficiency or trying to remember everyone who wrote in.
He even admitted that God sometimes made him forget people who seemed deserving.
Yes, people who had every good and firm intention, or even, as he put it, more needful things, such as eating, drinking. His memory, his focus in prayer was dictated by a higher will, not just the incoming mailbag.
Wow, that's profound. And when he did offer counsel in person, in the confessional or brief meetings, he was quite firm about setting limits, wasn't he?
Very firm. He was adamant he wasn't omniscient, not a fortune teller. His mission was solely focused, saving souls through prayer, suffering, and the guidance given in confession.
So he pushed back against certain types of questions.
Definitely. He insisted people use the ordinary means of spiritual guidance first. If your question was something any competent confessor could handle, basic advice on virtue, dealing with everyday sins, he'd defer it. He'd push you back to your local priest or spiritual director.
Maintaining the ordinary structures of the church.
Always. And he actively discouraged questions that seemed to show a lack of faith in the sacraments themselves, or were trying to get him to sort of bypass personal responsibility.
Like what kind of questions?
Like asking, am I in the state of grace? Right after you've made a sincere confession. If you trust the sacrament, you shouldn't need that external validation from him.
Makes sense.
Or questions like, am I pleasing to God? Or am I on the right path? He saw those as needing personal discernment and trust, not a definitive answer from him.
And questions about vocations, choosing a state in life.
His standard answer was usually something like, I will pray. As regards their vocation, they should consult their father confessor. Again, reinforcing the local authority.
He wouldn't just tell people, become a priest or get married.
Rarely, if ever. He directed them back to the normal channels. But sometimes, interestingly, his attempts to restrict counsel inadvertently revealed the very hidden knowledge he possessed, like with the mother who returned after 5 years.
Oh, right. She hadn't been able to visit because of travel issues and costs.
Exactly. So she finally gets there, goes to him, and asks him to watch over her children, believing this is the first time in 5 years she's made this request directly to him.
And his reaction?
He replied rather abruptly, almost with mock exasperation. And how many times are you going to ask me the same thing? Revealing that he had heard her daily, private, internalized prayer request for her children for over 5 years. Every single day, confirming her prayer was heard by him constantly, regardless of her physical distance or her ability to write or visit.
That's astonishing. It shows the prayer connection was real, continuous, and not dependent on the letters or visits at all. Okay, so we've explored this incredible, almost unbelievable yet seemingly fact-based reality of his life and ministry. But it's absolutely crucial now that we address the other side. The legends, the myths.
Yes, the fantastic legends and completely spurious accounts that inevitably circulate around someone like this. The myth-making machine goes into overdrive.
So we need some tools, or some ways for you, the listener, to distinguish the credible from the fictional.
Absolutely. And especially given those strict constraints of obedience he lived under, our sources actually provide 6 really clear points. Think of them as an administrative checklist for evaluating claims about Padre Pio.
Okay, point 1.
Point 1 relates to the prophecies we discussed. He never made prophecies concerning world events in a grand geopolitical sense. His documented prophecies were very specific, often local, like the Genoa bombing, or personal, directly tied to the spiritual state or immediate danger of the people involved. No big predictions about future popes or world wars ending on specific dates.
Got it. Specific and pastoral, not global forecasting. Point 2.
He never published revelations, nor did he authorize anyone else to publish supposed revelations on his behalf. His whole life was geared towards humility and obedience, not self-promotion or seeking fame through private revelations.
Which ties into point 3 about how he handled other people's claims of vision.
Exactly. When asked about other visionaries or apparitions, he consistently deferred to the church hierarchy. His standard line was, "It is up to the bishop, the ecclesiastical authority, to decide such matters." He never set himself up as an alternative authority.
And point 4 reinforces that. He demanded obedience to that authority.
Yes. In specific cases involving disputed apparitions, like Haraldsbach in Germany or Necedah, Wisconsin, Pio was emphatic. People must obey their bishops, full stop. He actively discouraged followers from siding with unapproved phenomena against church directives.
Okay, point 5. This one seems like a really practical tool for sorting things out.
It is maybe the most useful administrative check. Because of that strict formal prohibition from his superiors, any letter attributed to Padre Pio written after 1924 is automatically spurious.
After 1924, the 1923 ban was real, it was enforced, and he obeyed it absolutely. So any letter claiming to be from him after that date is fraudulent, period.
Correct. It's a simple, hard cutoff date based on his documented obedience.
And finally, point 6 clarifies what he did actually write before the ban.
Yes, just to be totally clear, there are only 2 known publications written by him before 1924 that were intended for a wider audience. One was a meditation called Agonia di Gesù nell'orto di Getsemani, the agony of Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. And the other was a meditation prayer on Mary Immaculate. That's it. Any other extensive writings or books attributed directly to him are either unauthorized, fabricated, or transcriptions of talks, perhaps, not things he himself wrote for publication after the ban.
So these 6 points really drive home that central tension of his life, don't they? He's this world-famous miracle worker, a figure of immense spiritual power.
Yet living under the strictest possible constraints: poverty, chastity, and crucially, absolute obedience, including administrative silence and control. His gifts were real, according to the sources, but they were always presented as tools for conversion, entirely subservient to the authority and structure of the church.
This deep dive, it really forces you to hold both things in your mind at once. The robust, earthy, humorous man who somehow survived on no sleep and no food.
And gained weight while fasting.
Right, that man. And simultaneously, the supernaturally gifted priest whose entire existence was defined by this strict, often isolating spiritual endurance within his ministry.
The sheer emotional labor involved is just palpable, isn't it? When you think about him hearing every request.
Even the unspoken ones, like that mother's prayers from miles away, day after day for years. He was the recipient of the world's spiritual burdens, funneled into that one small town, that one confessional.
He really was. And it brings us back to that strange, almost unsettling thing he said about his own prayer life.
That God only let him remember whom and what he wishes.
Yeah. Sometimes making him forget even basic needs like eating or drinking, let alone specific prayer requests.
So here's a final thought for you to mull over. Given that constant, overwhelming flood of global needs pouring into San Giovanni Rotondo, how does Pio's experience of this selective, divinely guided forgetting challenge our usual ideas about how intercessory prayer works?
Does it suggest that maybe some petitions, however sincere they are simply outside the divine plan for that specific moment or for that specific intercessor, and are therefore actively, almost administratively, purged from the memory of the one praying, even someone like Pio? What does that imply about the petitions God does allow to be remembered?
A complex thought to sit with. Definitely something to consider until our next deep dive.